The wind whipped mercilessly through the empty train station, scattering a few crumpled newspapers across the frozen platform. Snowflakes fell like diamonds in the pale glow of the station lights, coating everything in a layer of icy silence. A young nurse, shivering violently, hugged herself tightly, her thin coat doing little to keep the biting cold at bay. She had missed her last train and had no choice but to wait, praying someone, anyone, would come along before the night swallowed her completely. Her name was Emily, and she had come from a small town, full of dreams about helping people, unaware that tonight her life was about to change forever. From the shadows of the platform, the sound of horse hooves clattered against the frozen cobblestones, echoing in the empty station like a heartbeat. A tall figure emerged, dusted in snow, wearing a wide-brimmed cowboy hat that cast a shadow over his chiseled features. His coat, dark and tailored, hinted at wealth, but it was the commanding presence, the aura of confidence, that truly set him apart. His name was Jack Callahan, a self-made millionaire who had built his empire from nothing, riding the rough trails of Texas and turning sheer determination into gold. Jack had been traveling incognito, seeking solace from the relentless pace of his life, when the station appeared in the foggy distance. He saw her immediately, a lone figure, small against the vastness of the platform, her teeth chattering, eyes wide with fear and cold. Without hesitation, he approached, his boots crunching against the ice, and stopped a few feet away, offering a warm smile that seemed to slice through the frost in the air. "Miss, you look like you've seen a ghost," he said, his deep voice calm yet commanding. Emily turned, startled by the sudden presence. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, the cold didn't matter. There was something in his gaze, a warmth she hadn't felt in months, perhaps years. I missed my train," she stammered, her voice trembling not just from the cold, but from the intensity in his presence. "And it's freezing tonight." Jack extended his hand, not just in courtesy but in a gesture that conveyed protection. "Come on, you can't be standing here in this weather. Let's get you somewhere warm." Without waiting for a reply, he led her to a nearby bench and wrapped his coat around her shoulders. The warmth hit her like a wave, and for the first time that evening, Emily could breathe. They began talking as the snow fell around them. Jack listened intently, genuinely interested in the little details of her life, the hospital where she worked, the patients she cared for, the dreams she held. Emily was cautious at first. Men like him usually weren't interested in someone like her, or they were used to having everything handed to them without understanding struggle. But there was something different about Jack. He wasn't trying to impress her with wealth or status, he was simply being present, and that presence was intoxicating. Hours passed, and the station remained deserted, the train schedules lost in the snowstorm. Jack offered to call her a cab, but Emily hesitated, realizing she didn't want the night to end. Something unspoken lingered between them, a tension that was neither frightening nor inappropriate but electric. They shared stories, laughed at the absurdity of the day, and for a brief moment, it was as if the cold world outside didn't exist. Finally, a train whistle pierced the night, announcing the next arrival. Emily's heart sank, but Jack's expression remained unreadable. "You don't have to go alone," he said softly. She shook her head, unable to voice the truth, that she didn't want this night to end. "Then, stay with me until it passes?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack smiled, a slow, knowing smile, and nodded. "Of course." And in that moment, under the icy moonlight and falling snow, a connection was forged that neither time nor circumstance could sever. Emily felt a flicker of hope, something she hadn't felt in years. And Jack? He realized that wealth, power, and influence were nothing compared to the warmth of a heart like hers. As the snowstorm raged outside, they shared the bench, talking and laughing, letting the world fade. Little did they know, their chance meeting at a desolate train station would not just change their lives, it would become the story of a lifetime, a love that history would remember. And to those watching their story unfold, one lesson was already clear: sometimes, destiny finds you in the most unexpected places, and magic exists even in the coldest nights. Windows of the small inn where Jack had taken Emily, a place warmed by the crackling fire and the aroma of freshly baked bread. She awoke wrapped in his coat, a gentle reminder that the stranger who had rescued her the night before was no ordinary man. Jack sat nearby, a cup of coffee in hand, reading quietly, yet every so often his eyes flicked to her, full of a protective curiosity that made Emily's pulse quicken. There was an ease between them now, a kind of silent understanding that words could never fully capture, yet both felt deeply. Over breakfast, their conversation wandered from light topics, favorite books, childhood memories, to the more intimate stories they rarely shared with anyone. Emily spoke of the long shifts at the hospital, the patients who lingered in her thoughts long after the day ended, and the guilt she sometimes carried for not being able to save everyone. Jack listened, not just politely, but with an intensity that made her feel truly seen. He shared his own journey from dusty ranches to skyscrapers, the mistakes he'd made, and the moments he'd feared he might fail. There was no boasting, no need to impress, only honesty and vulnerability. As the day unfolded, Jack insisted on showing her the town, a place she had never explored beyond her daily routines. They walked along quiet streets dusted with snow, laughter echoing through narrow alleys as they ducked under awnings and avoided puddles that had frozen overnight. Jack's hand brushed hers a few times, tentative yet electric, and each time Emily felt a thrill she couldn't ignore. There was something grounding about him, a steadiness in his presence that drew her closer, though she resisted, afraid of letting herself fall too quickly. By afternoon, they found themselves at a quaint bookstore, the scent of old paper and polished wood wrapping them in comfort. Jack watched Emily run her fingers along the spines of books, her eyes lighting up as she read snippets aloud. He realized that the world she inhabited, filled with care, empathy, and quiet courage, was entirely different from his own, and yet it fascinated him. He wanted to know every detail of her life, every fear and every hope. And she, in turn, felt a sense of safety with him she had never known, a feeling that whispered, perhaps she could trust him with her heart. Yet the world outside was not as simple as the moments they shared. Jack's life, filled with responsibilities, board meetings, and public appearances, could easily pull him away, and Emily knew the realities of her own life, the hospital, her family obligations, and the world she was trying to navigate, could make their connection fleeting. But neither of them wanted to let go. So they clung to the hours together, allowing themselves to dream of a future neither had dared imagine. As evening approached, Jack invited Emily to ride with him on horseback through the outskirts of the town. She hesitated, nervous, but the glint in his eyes and the warmth in his smile gave her courage. Mounted side by side, the horses trotted through snow-laden fields, and the world seemed to stretch endlessly around them. Emily laughed as the wind whipped her hair, and Jack's laughter joined hers, blending into the serene landscape. The simplicity of the moment, the shared joy, and the exhilaration of the ride cemented a bond that felt unbreakable. That night, as they returned to the inn, Emily noticed a subtle shift in Jack. There was a tenderness in the way he helped her out of her coat, a lingering touch when he brushed the snow from her hair. For the first time since their meeting, the distance between them narrowed, not just physically, but emotionally. Emily's heart, once cautious and protective, now fluttered with possibilities she had never allowed herself to consider. Jack, too, felt an unfamiliar vulnerability. He had always been in control, always decisive, yet with Emily, he found himself willing to let go, to simply be present and let the connection unfold. Dinner was quiet, intimate, and filled with small, significant gestures, the way Jack poured her wine, the way Emily smiled at the subtle humor in his stories. They talked about dreams, ambitions, and fears, and for every secret shared, the bond deepened. Neither noticed the hours slipping away, nor did they care. Outside, snow blanketed the world in silence, and inside, a different warmth took hold, the warmth of hearts aligning, the warmth of a love that was quietly, irrevocably beginning. As they sat by the fire later, Jack reached for her hand, and Emily did not pull away. The gesture was simple, yet it carried a weight neither could ignore. Words were unnecessary, the connection spoke for itself. And in that stillness, both realized something profound. The universe had conspired to bring them together, and the spark that had ignited on the frozen